The morning sun rose over New Eden Colony like it had every day for the past 15 years. The golden light touched the green fields where corn and wheat grew tall. Children ran through the streets on their way to school, their laughter echoing. Between the small houses, Governor Peter Matthews stood on his office balcony, drinking his morning coffee. He watched the farmers start their day in the fields below. New Eden was everything he had dreamed of when they first came here. A peaceful world where families could grow and be safe. "Sir, we have a message from Earth," said his assistant, walking onto the balcony. Peter smiled. "Good news, I hope. Maybe they approved our request for more medical supplies." But when he read the message, his smile faded. It was just routine check-in protocols, nothing important. Peter had no way of knowing this would be the last normal morning New Eden would ever see. 300 miles above the planet, space began to change. The stars seemed to shift and bend as massive ships dropped out of hyperspace. The vessels were dark and angular, like giant knives cutting through the void. They moved with deadly purpose toward the small human colony below. Commander Lisa Carter was having breakfast on her patrol ship, the UE's Defender, when the alarm started screaming. Her coffee mug crashed to the floor as she rushed to the bridge. "What's happening?" she demanded. "We're getting a distress signal from New Eden," said Lieutenant Ben Murphy, his face pale as he stared at his screen. It's not good, Commander." Lisa grabbed the communication headset. "New Eden, this is UE's Defender. Please respond." The voice that came through was filled with panic. "This is New Eden Control. We have unknown ships in orbit. There. Oh God, they're firing on the cities. We need help now." The transmission cut to static. Lisa felt her blood turn cold. "Murphy, how long to reach New Eden?" 3 days at maximum speed, Commander. "And we go now. Send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them New Eden is under attack." During the 3-day journey to New Eden, Lisa couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the families living on that peaceful world, the children she had seen playing in the streets during her last visit, the farmers who had been so proud to show her their crops. When the UE's Defender finally arrived at New Eden, Lisa wished she had never come. The planet was burning. Great clouds of smoke rose from what used to be cities. The orbital stations were nothing but twisted metal floating in space. Even from orbit, she could see the scars across the planet's surface where weapons had struck. "My God," whispered Murphy. "What kind of monsters would do this?" Lisa forced herself to stay calm. "Take us down to the surface. We need to look for survivors." The landing was the worst part. As their ship descended through the smoke, Lisa could see the full horror of what had happened. The cities were gone. Not just destroyed, but completely erased. Where New Eden's capital had stood, there was only a glass crater that still glowed with heat. They landed near what used to be a farming community. Lisa led a team of 6 soldiers out of the ship. The silence was complete. No birds, no insects, no wind, just the crackle of still burning fires. "Spread out," Lisa ordered. "Look for anyone who might have survived." What they found instead were the bodies. The aliens had not just killed the colonists. They had arranged the bodies in neat rows, as if they were proud of their work. Men, women, children, even the elderly. All of them executed with precise shots. To the head, Sergeant Mike Collins found the first clue about who had done this. "Commander, you need to see this." Lisa followed him to a large metal device planted in the town center. It was clearly alien technology, with strange symbols carved into its surface. But there was also something else. A recording device, still functioning. "They left this on purpose," Collins said. "They wanted us to find it." Lisa activated the device. A holographic image appeared, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect. It had 4 arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Its voice was like metal scraping against stone. "I am War Leader Kraft of the Vorthic hegemony," the creature said. "We have cleansed this world of inferior biological matter. Let this serve as a warning to all who would pollute the galaxy with their weakness. The Vorthic are the galaxy's rightful rulers. Submit or be eliminated." The recording ended, but the device kept playing. It showed images of the attack. The Vorthic ships had surrounded the planet and demanded surrender. When the colonists tried to negotiate, the aliens had laughed and begun their systematic slaughter. Lisa watched in horror as the recording showed Vorthic soldiers going house to house, killing every human they found. They moved with cold efficiency, as if they were simply cleaning up trash. "They didn't even try to take prisoners," Murphy said, his voice shaking. "They just killed everyone." Lisa turned off the recording. Her hands were shaking with rage. "Get Captain Morrison on the radio. Tell him to meet us at the governor's mansion. And send a full report to Admiral Harper. Include everything." At the governor's mansion, they found Peter Matthews. He was sitting at his desk, a cup of coffee still in his hands. He had been shot. While reading the morning reports, his face was peaceful, as if he had never seen death coming. Captain Jake Morrison arrived with his investigation team 6 hours later. He was a veteran of the border wars, a man who had seen plenty of violence. But even he was shocked by what the Vorthic had done. "This wasn't a military action," he told Lisa as they walked through the destroyed town. "This was genocide. Pure and simple." "How many dead?" Lisa asked. Morrison checked his tablet. 2.3 million. Every human on the planet. Even the babies. Lisa felt sick. Why would they do this? What could they possibly gain? "Fear," Morrison said. "They want other human colonies to know what happens when you don't surrender. Immediately, they're trying to break our will to fight." As they prepared to leave New Eden, Lisa took one last look at the burning world. She thought about the children who would never grow up, the families who would never reunite, the dreams that had died with the colonists. "Send a message to Earth," she told Murphy. "Tell them the Vorthic have declared war on humanity. Tell them about New Eden. Tell them everything." A UE sender lifted off from the dead world, carrying the horrible news back to human space. Behind them, New Eden continued to burn, a monument to alien cruelty and human innocence destroyed. Lisa didn't know it yet, but her report would change everything. The Vorthic thought they had sent a message of fear to humanity. Instead, they had awakened something they were not prepared to face. The sleeping giant was about to wake up, and it would be very, very angry. The news from New Eden reached Earth 3 days after Commander Lisa Carter sent her report. President Andrew Collins was eating dinner with his family when his security chief burst into the room. "Sir, we have an emergency. You need to see this." "No." Collins followed him to the Situation Room, where Admiral Nicole Harper was waiting. Her face was grim as she handed him the tablet containing Carter's report. 2.3 million dead, Harper said quietly. "Every human on the planet, men, women, children, all executed." Collins read the report in silence. With each paragraph, his face grew harder. When he finished, he set the tablet down carefully. "How long until we can respond?" he asked. "That depends on what kind of response you want, sir," Harper replied. "If you want a small strike force, we can have ships ready in 2 weeks. But if you want to send a real message..." "I want to send the strongest message possible," Collins said. "What do you need?" Harper smiled for the first time since receiving the report. "Give me authorization to activate Protocol Omega." Collins had hoped never to hear those words. Protocol Omega was humanity's last resort, a plan developed 20 years ago when they first encountered hostile aliens. It had never been used because no threat had been big enough to justify it, until now. "You have it," Collins said. "Do whatever you need to do." Within hours, coded messages went out to every human world. Admiral Richard Stone, Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, was pulled from his retirement on Mars. He arrived at Earth. Command 12 hours later, his face set with determination. "How bad is it?" he asked Harper. "See for yourself," she said, showing him the recordings the Vorthik had left behind. Stone watched the alien recordings in silence. When they finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice. Like cold steel, they made a mistake. They thought they were dealing with a weak species. They thought wrong. Stone activated Protocol Omega that same day. Across human space, sirens began to wail. On Mars, Captain Maria Rodriguez was working in her garden when the alert came through. She dropped her tools and ran to her communication. "Console, this is Mars Fleet Command," the voice said. "All reserve officers report for immediate activation. This is not a drill." Rodriguez had been waiting for this call for 10 years. She grabbed her uniform and headed for the spaceport. Around her, the peaceful dome city of New Alexandria was transforming. Shop owners were closing their stores. Farmers were leaving there. Fields. Everyone was heading to their emergency stations. At the spaceport, Rodriguez found hundreds of other reserve officers. They all had the same look in their eyes, grim determination mixed with barely controlled rage. "Listen up," said Admiral Stone, who had arrived on Mars that morning. "You all know why we're here. The Vorthik hegemony has declared war on humanity by committing genocide against New Eden. They think they can terrorize us into submission." Stone's voice grew louder. "They're about to learn that humans don't surrender. We don't back down. And we don't forget our dead." The crowd cheered, but it was an angry sound, like the growl of a waking predator. Rodriguez was assigned to the UE's Vengeance, one of the massive ships that had been kept in storage for exactly this situation. As she walked through the ship's corridors, she was amazed at its size. The Vengeance was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "How many ships like this do we have?" she asked the ship's engineer, Lieutenant Kevin Wright. 700,000, Wright replied with a grim smile. "The Vorthik think they know humanity. They're about to get an education." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on every human world. Dr. Tony Lopez was working at his research station on Europa when the call came. He was a xenobiologist, but he had also been a Marine before becoming a scientist. "Pack your gear," his commander told him. "We're going to war." Lopez looked around his laboratory, filled with peaceful research on alien plant life. In a few hours, he would be analyzing enemy technology instead of studying flowers. The transformation felt strange but necessary. On the industrial world of Titan, General Amanda Foster was overseeing the activation of the hidden weapons factories. For 20 years, these facilities had been disguised as civilian manufacturing plants. Now their true purpose was revealed. "How long until full production?" she asked her chief engineer. "The automated systems are already running, General. We'll have the first batch of new warships ready in 2 weeks." Foster nodded. The Vorthik had given humanity an ultimatum: submit or be destroyed. They were about to discover that humanity had a third option. Commander Danny Clark was pulled from his job as a cargo ship captain to command one of the new Vengeance-class battleships. As he stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, he thought about the families who had died on New Eden. "Sir, we're receiving volunteers faster than we can process them," his communications officer reported. "Every human world is sending people. We have farmers, teachers, mechanics, all wanting to join the fleet." Clark wasn't surprised. The Vorthik had made this personal by targeting civilians. Now every human in the galaxy wanted revenge. Susan Baker had been a merchant marine for 15 years, hauling cargo between the outer colonies. When the call came, she didn't hesitate. She armed her ship with military weapons and volunteered for the fleet. "Why are you doing this?" her co-pilot asked. "You could stay safe on Earth." Baker thought about the children who had died on New Eden. "Because someone has to make sure this never happens again." Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Mitchell was given a special assignment. He was to infiltrate Vorthik space and gather intelligence about their military capabilities. "What should I look for?" he asked Admiral Stone. "Everything," Stone replied. "Their fleet size, their technology, their weaknesses. We need to know what we're up against." Mitchell's ship left Earth that same night, heading into enemy territory. He carried with him the hopes of every human who wanted justice for New Eden. As the weeks passed, the human response grew beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that had been hidden for decades emerged from secret bases. Weapons that had been developed in classified projects were brought online. Soldiers who had been living as civilians remembered their training and picked up their weapons. Vorthik had wanted to send a message about their power. Instead, they had awakened something they had never encountered before, a species that would go to any length to protect its own. Dr. Wright, working in the deep research labs beneath Earth's surface, made the final preparations for humanity's secret weapon. The Vorthik thought they were genetically superior to all other species. They were about to discover that humans had found a way to turn that superiority into a weakness. "Are you sure this will work?" General Foster asked him. Wright smiled grimly. "The Vorthik want to prove they're the galaxy's dominant species. We're going to give them that chance. They'll get to face a species that has spent its entire history learning how to fight." The sleeping giant was fully awake now, and it was, preparing to show the galaxy what happened when you murdered human children. 6 months after the New Eden massacre, Admiral Richard Stone stood in the observation deck of the UES Titan, watching the greatest military force in human history assemble. Ships stretched as far as the eye could see in all directions. Massive battleships floated next to smaller destroyers. Fighter squadrons moved in perfect formation between the larger vessels. "Final count, Admiral," said his aide, Captain Jimmy Barnes. 700,000 ships, all fueled, armed, and ready for battle. Stone nodded slowly. In 6 months, humanity had built a fleet larger than most species had ever dreamed possible. Every ship was crewed by volunteers seeking justice for the murdered colonists of New Eden. "Any word from our scout ships?" Stone asked. "Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell just reported in from Vorthik space. His intelligence is very interesting." Stone read Mitchell's report with growing satisfaction. The Vorthik Empire was vast, controlling hundreds of worlds across 12 star systems. They had conquered dozens of alien species, enslaving some and exterminating others. Their military was built on intimidation and terror, but they had never faced organized resistance. Every species they had encountered had either surrendered immediately or been crushed by their superior numbers. The Vorthik had no experience fighting a determined enemy. "They're about to get that experience," Stone said grimly. Captain Danny Clark walked through the corridors of his ship, the UES Retribution. The massive vessel was one of the new Vengeance-class battleships, designed specifically for this war. Its armor could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. Its guns could crack the crust of a planet. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the other ship commanders," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster. "They want to know when we attack." Clark smiled. Every human in the fleet wanted to begin the assault. The desire for revenge burned in all of them like a fire that couldn't be put out. "Tell them we attack when Admiral Stone gives the order. But it won't be long now." Dr. Kevin Wright made final checks on the special weapon systems hidden throughout the human fleet. These weapons were humanity's secret advantage, developed over decades of careful research. Are you certain they'll work against Vorthic biology? Asked General Amanda Foster, who had come to inspect the weapons personally. We've tested them extensively, Wright replied. The Vorthic are proud of their genetic perfection. That pride will be their downfall. Wright had spent years studying alien biology, learning how different species functioned. The Vorthic had enhanced their own genetics to make themselves stronger and smarter than other races. But genetic enhancement came with weaknesses that could be exploited. Commander, Susan Baker checked her cargo ship one final time. The vessel had been converted into a mobile weapons platform, bristling with missile launchers and energy cannons. Like thousands of other civilian volunteers, she had given up her peaceful life to join the war fleet. Are you ready for this? Asked her co-pilot, Lieutenant Carl Rodriguez. Baker looked at the picture of New Eden's children that she kept on her control panel. The image had been taken just days before the massacre, showing kids playing in a schoolyard that no longer existed. I've been ready for 6 months, she said. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Mitchell had spent those 6 months deep in Vorthic space, studying their military and society. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. The Vorthic were incredibly powerful. Their ships were fast and heavily armed. Their soldiers were genetically enhanced killing machines. They had conquered an area of space larger than the entire human territory, but they had grown overconfident. They saw themselves as the galaxy's ultimate predators, incapable of being challenged by any other species. They had built their entire military around the concept of quick, brutal victories that broke enemy morale. They've never fought a war of attrition, Mitchell reported to Admiral Stone. They've never faced an enemy that wouldn't surrender after the first defeat. Their whole strategy depends on their opponents giving up quickly. Stone studied the intelligence reports. The Vorthic had approximately 2 million ships spread across their empire. On paper, they outnumbered the human fleet almost 3-1. But numbers weren't everything. What about their command structure? Stone asked. Highly centralized, Mitchell replied. All major decisions are made by the War Council on their home world. If we can disrupt their communications, their fleet, commanders won't know how to respond, Stone smiled. The Vorthic thought they understood warfare, but they had never faced humans. They were about to learn that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years, perfecting the art of war through constant conflict. Captain Maria Rodriguez supervised the final preparations of the support fleet. These ships carried the ammunition, fuel, and supplies needed to keep the combat vessels fighting. Unlike the Vorthic, who expected quick victories, humans were prepared for a long war. How long can we maintain combat operations? Asked General Foster. Indefinitely, Rodriguez replied. We've got mobile shipyards, automated factories, and enough raw materials to build replacement ships as fast as we lose them. The Vorthic won't be able to outlast us. The human fleet included more than just military vessels. There were hospital ships to treat wounded, engineering ships to repair battle damage, and even entertainment ships to keep morale high during the long campaign. Dr. Tony Lopez worked with the xenobiology team, studying captured Vorthic technology. The aliens had advanced weapons and strong defenses, but their equipment was designed for fighting primitive species. Their shields are optimized against kinetic weapons, Lopez reported. They're not prepared for our energy-based systems. The Vorthic had designed their technology to fight enemies who used simple projectile weapons. Humans had developed directed energy weapons, plasma cannons, and quantum disruptors that could cut through Vorthic defenses like paper dot as the fleet prepared. To depart, Admiral Stone addressed all 700,000 ships simultaneously. 6 months ago, The Vorthik murdered 2.3 million innocent humans. His voice echoed across the fleet. They thought they were sending us a message about their power. Instead, they made the greatest mistake in galactic history. Crews of every ship listened in silence. Today, we begin Operation Vengeance. We will not stop until every Vorthik military installation is destroyed. We will not rest until every enslaved species is free. We will not quit until justice is served. For New Eden. Stone's voice grew harder. The Vorthik wanted to show the galaxy what happens when you oppose them. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you murder human children. The fleet began to move, 700,000 ships accelerating toward Vorthik space. Behind them, human industrial worlds continued producing more vessels, more weapons, more supplies. The war machine that had been sleeping for 20 years was now fully awake and hungry for battle. The Vorthik had awakened something terrible, and now they would face the consequences of their actions. The human armada moved through space like a dark ocean of metal and fire. 700,000 ships traveling together created a sight that had never been seen before in the galaxy. The combined mass of the fleet was so enormous that it bent. Light around itself, making the stars appear to shift and dance. Admiral Richard Stone stood on the bridge of the U.E.S. Titan, watching the tactical display that showed their approach to Vorthik space. Behind him, the fleet stretched for thousands of miles in every direction. The sight would have been beautiful, if not for the grim purpose that drove them forward. "We're receiving communications from the outer colonies," reported Captain Jimmy Barnes. "Word of our fleet is spreading. Some of the enslaved species are beginning to revolt." Stone nodded. This was exactly what he had hoped for. The Vorthik Empire was built on fear and oppression. If that fear was replaced by hope, the empire would collapse from within. "Tell them to coordinate their uprisings with our attacks," Stone ordered. "We'll provide support wherever we can." The first major battle came at Kepler 442, a star system the Vorthik had conquered 15 years earlier. The original inhabitants, a peaceful species called the Relic, had been enslaved and forced to work in the system's mines. Commander Maria Rodriguez led the advanced scout force of 50,000 ships. As they approached the system, Vorthik defenders moved to intercept them. The enemy fleet was impressive by any standard except human ones. "Enemy count?" Rodriguez asked her tactical officer. 50,000 ships, Commander. They're moving into attack formation." Rodriguez almost laughed. The Vorthik had sent an equal number of ships to face her advance force. They had no idea that she commanded only a small fraction of the human fleet. "All ships, prepare for combat," she ordered. "Show them what humans do to child killers." The battle began when the Vorthik opened fire at maximum range. Their weapons were powerful, designed to terrorize enemies into surrender. Beams of energy lanced across space, striking human ships with devastating force. But the human ships didn't break. Their shields held against the Vorthik assault, and they returned fire with weapons the enemy had never seen before. Quantum disruptors tore through Vorthik armor like it was made of paper. Plasma cannons melted enemy ships from the inside out. Captain Danny Clark commanded the U.E.'s Retribution in the center of the human formation. His ship's guns spoke with the voice of human anger, each shot aimed with deadly precision. "Target there." "Command ship," Clark ordered. "Take out their leadership." The Retribution's main guns fired simultaneously, sending a stream of pure energy across space. The Vorthik command ship tried to maneuver, but human targeting systems were too advanced. The beam struck the alien vessel amidships, cutting it in half. With their command ship destroyed, the Vorthik fleet began to fall apart. Their ships had been designed for quick victories against weak opponents. They couldn't handle the disciplined assault of human forces. "They're trying to retreat," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster. "Don't let them," Clark replied coldly. No survivors. No witnesses. No mercy. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Vorthek fleet had been completely destroyed. 50,000 enemy ships reduced to glowing debris, while human losses were minimal. But the real victory came when the human fleet moved to liberate the enslaved Rilek. The peaceful aliens had been forced to work in dangerous mines for over a decade, their population reduced from billions to mere millions. Captain Jake Morrison led the liberation force that landed on the planet's surface. What they found filled them with rage. The Vorthek had worked the Rilek to death, treating them like disposable tools. "Get medical teams down here now," Morrison ordered, "and bring food. Lots of food." The Rilek were too weak to celebrate their freedom properly, but their gratitude was clear. Through translators, their leaders thanked the humans for ending their nightmare. "Why did you help us?" asked one elderly Rilek. "We have nothing to offer you." Morrison thought about the children of New Eden. Because it's the right thing to do. News of the human victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than light. On dozens of worlds, enslaved species began to rebel against their Vorthek masters. The empire that had seemed invincible was suddenly fighting on multiple fronts. Dr. Kevin Wright monitored the biological weapons that had been deployed during the battle. The Vorthek had been so proud of their genetic superiority that they had made all their soldiers nearly identical. This made them vulnerable to targeted biological agents. The weapon worked perfectly, Wright reported to Admiral Stone. Vorthek soldiers exposed to the agent lost their enhanced reflexes and strength. They became just ordinary fighters. Stone smiled grimly. The Vorthek had enhanced their genetics to make themselves into perfect warriors. But perfection came with a price. By making themselves so similar, they had created a weakness that humans could exploit. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Mitchell continued his deep reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines. The intelligence he gathered showed that the Vorthek Empire was beginning to panic. "They're pulling ships from the outer territories," Mitchell reported, "concentrating their forces around the core worlds. They're preparing for a defensive war." This was exactly what Stone had hoped for. The Vorthek were abandoning their conquests to protect their homeland. This would give the enslaved species more opportunities to revolt. Commander Susan Baker led a task force of converted civilian ships in support operations. Her cargo vessel, now bristling with weapons, helped evacuate refugees from liberated worlds. "How many have we saved so far?" she asked her co-pilot, Lieutenant Carl Rodriguez. "Over 50 million beings from 12 different species," Rodriguez replied, "and more every day." Baker felt a sense of satisfaction. The Vorthek had tried to spread terror across the galaxy. Instead, they had awakened humanity's protective instincts. Now humans were freeing everyone the aliens had enslaved. General Amanda Foster coordinated the overall campaign from the fleet's mobile command center. The human advance was proceeding faster than anyone had expected. The Vorthek military was collapsing under the weight of human firepower and alien rebellions. "What's our next target?" she asked Admiral Stone. Stone studied the tactical display. Ahead of them lay the Vorthak core worlds, heavily defended and filled with the Empire's remaining military forces. "We hit them where it hurts most," Stone said. "Their home system. It's time to end this war." Dr. Tony Lopez worked with the intelligence teams to analyze captured Vorthek technology. The aliens had advanced weapons, but their military doctrine was flawed. They had never learned to fight a prolonged war against a determined enemy. "Their supply lines are breaking down," Lopez reported. "They can't maintain their fleet without resources from the conquered worlds. The rebellions are strangling them." The human fleet continued its advance, growing stronger with each victory. More ships arrived from human space, bringing fresh supplies and reinforcements. The industrial worlds of humanity were working at full capacity, producing weapons and ships faster than they could be used as they approached the Vorthic core systems. Admiral Stone reflected on how much had changed since New Eden. The Vorthic had thought they were dealing with a weak species that would surrender after one demonstration of power. They had been wrong. Humans didn't surrender. They didn't forget. And they didn't forgive those who murdered their children. The final confrontation was approaching, and the Vorthic were about to learn what it meant to face an angry humanity. The Vorthic home system appeared on the human fleet's sensors like a fortress in space. Massive orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet, their weapons pointed outward at the approaching enemy. The remaining Vorthic fleet, nearly 200,000 ships, waited in defensive formation. Admiral Richard Stone studied the tactical display from the bridge of the UES Titan. This would be the largest space battle in galactic history. Everything that had happened since New Eden had led to this moment. "All ships report ready for battle," said Captain Jimmy Barnes. 700,000 vessels in attack formation. Stone took a deep breath. In a few hours, this war would be over. Either humanity would achieve justice for New Eden, or the Vorthic would prove they truly were the galaxy's supreme species. "Send a message to the Vorthic leadership," Stone ordered. "Tell them we offer them one chance to surrender. They can stand trial for their crimes, or they can die fighting." The response came quickly. War leader Krath, the same alien who had ordered the New Eden massacre, appeared on the communication screen. His reptilian face showed no fear, only arrogance. "Inferior humans," Krath hissed. "You think your numbers make you strong? We are Vorthic. We are genetically perfect. We will crush you as we crushed your pathetic colony." Stone's face remained calm, but his eyes burned with cold fury. "Then you have chosen death. So be it." A battle began with the Vorthic orbital platforms opening fire. Massive energy beams reached across space toward the human fleet. The weapons were designed to destroy entire fleets with single shots, but the human ships scattered like a cloud of deadly insects. Their movements were too fast and too coordinated for the static defense platforms to track effectively. Captain Danny Clark commanded the UES Retribution as it dove toward the planet's surface. His ship's mission was to destroy the planetary defense grid while the main fleet engaged the Vorthic Navy. "Incoming missiles," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster. 200 targets. Deploy countermeasures," Clark ordered, "and return fire on those platforms." The Retribution's guns spoke with the voice of human vengeance. Each shot was aimed with precision born of months of planning. The orbital platforms had been designed to fight ships that attacked in straight lines. They couldn't handle the chaotic, three-dimensional assault of human forces. In the main battle, Commander Maria Rodriguez led her squadron against the Vorthic fleet. The enemy ships were powerful, but they fought like they always had, expecting their opponents to break and run after the first exchange. "They're not adapting," Rodriguez told her tactical officer. "They keep using the same formations, even though they're not working." The Vorthic had never needed to adapt. Every species they had faced before had either surrendered immediately or been crushed by overwhelming force. They had no experience with flexible tactics. The human fleet, by contrast, had been designed for exactly this kind of battle. Ships worked together in small groups, covering each other's weaknesses and exploiting enemy mistakes. When Vorthic ships tried to concentrate their fire, human vessels would scatter and attack from new angles. Dr. Kevin Wright monitored the biological weapons being deployed throughout the battle. The Vorthic soldiers were beginning to show the effects of the targeted agents. Their enhanced reflexes were slowing down. Their superior strength was failing them. "The weapon is working better than expected," Reich reported to Admiral Stone. Vorthic effectiveness is down by 60% across all their ships. The aliens had spent generations making themselves into perfect warriors, but their perfection had become their weakness. By making all their soldiers nearly identical, they had made them vulnerable to the same biological attack. Captain Jake Morrison led the ground assault teams that would capture the Vorthic leadership. His Marines were the best humanity had to offer, veterans of a dozen conflicts who had volunteered specifically for this mission. Remember, Morrison told his troops as their dropships approached the planet, we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. Take prisoners when possible. The Marines landed on Vorthic Prime as the space battle raged overhead. The planet's surface was covered with massive cities built from dark metal and stone. This was the heart of an empire that had enslaved dozens of species. Morrison's forces moved quickly through the streets, heading for the government complex where the Vorthic leadership was hiding. Along the way, they discovered something that filled them with rage. The Vorthic had built monuments to their conquests, statues made from the bones of extinct species, buildings decorated with the preserved heads of alien leaders, museums filled with trophies taken from murdered children. Stay focused, Morrison ordered his troops. Don't let anger cloud your judgment. We're better than they are. The final assault on the government complex was swift and decisive. The Vorthic guards fought with desperate fury, but human weapons and tactics proved superior. Within 3 hours, Morrison's Marines had captured the entire Vorthic leadership. War leader Kraft was found in his command bunker, still trying to coordinate the defense of his crumbling empire. When the Marines broke down his door, he reached for a weapon. I wouldn't, said Morrison, pointing his rifle at the alien's head. You're going to stand trial for what you did to New Eden. Krab's reptilian eyes burned with hatred. You cannot judge us. We are the supreme species. We are perfect. Perfect species don't murder children, Morrison replied coldly. In space, the battle was reaching its conclusion. The Vorthic fleet was broken, their ships scattered or destroyed. The orbital platforms had been reduced to glowing wreckage. The planet's defenses lay in ruins. Admiral Stone received the final report from all his commanders. Total Vorthic military. Forces destroyed or captured. Enemy leadership in custody. Planet secured. Stone felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served for New Eden, but at a cost. Even though human losses had been minimal, good people had died in this war. Begin evacuation of the civilian population, Stone ordered. Set up refugee camps on the outer moon. Make sure they have food and medical care. Captain Susan Baker coordinated the humanitarian efforts that followed the battle. Her converted cargo ship was now being used to transport supplies to refugee camps. The war was over, but the work of building peace was just beginning. What happens to the Vorthic now? Asked her co-pilot, Lieutenant Carl Rodriguez. Baker looked at the streams of alien refugees boarding the transport ships. They'll be tried for their crimes. The guilty ones will be punished. The innocent ones will be given a chance to build a better society. Dr. Tony Lopez worked with representatives from dozens of species to establish the new galactic government. The Galactic Protection Alliance would ensure that no species could ever again commit genocide against another. Humanity will serve as the Alliance's guardian force, Lopez announced at the first assembly. We will protect all species from aggression and oppression. The trial of the Vorthic leadership took place on New Eden, which had been rebuilt as a memorial to the victims of genocide. War leader Kraft and his supporters were found guilty of crimes against sentient life. Commander Lisa Carter, who had first discovered the massacre, read the final judgment. For the crime of genocide against the human colony of New Eden, and for the enslavement and murder of countless other species, you are sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor. You will spend the rest of your lives rebuilding the worlds you destroyed. Admiral Stone stood in the memorial garden on New Eden, looking at the names of the 2.3 million victims carved into the black stone wall. The colony was alive again, filled, with humans and aliens working together to build a better future. Did we do the right thing? Asked General Amanda Foster, who had come to visit the memorial. Stone nodded slowly. We showed the galaxy that evil has consequences. That innocent life has value. That humanity will always stand up for those who cannot protect themselves. The human fleet dispersed across the galaxy, no longer as conquerors, but as protectors. Their mission was to ensure that what happened to New Eden would never happen again to any species. Anywhere in the cosmos, the Vorthic had wanted to prove they were the galaxy's dominant species. Instead, they had awakened humanity's true purpose: to be the guardians of all life among the stars.